Welcome back, Truth Seeker. We're going to continue to look at what happened in Maui because the mainstream media is trying to turn away from Maui and just move on with the rest of the news cycle. And now there's another storm that's about to impact Florida, of course, where The Rock once played for the Miami Hurricanes. And, of course, he's recently playing Maui the Fire God in the Moana series. But anyhow, that's the way it is in our society. It's like one crazy event to the next, and the last one gets forgotten about in no time because there's so many new ones that overwhelm us that are always coming through this world of screens and televisions and now smartphones. But this thing in Maui, it can't be looked past. And just like we said the same thing about other stories that were like Maui before Maui happened, these stories shouldn't be looked past. There will be more towns like this as long as the American people do not catch on to the game that is being played with our lives. And we've been spelling this game out for a decade now. Again, I've been doing the work that I've been doing every day since August of 2013 because I saw it was go time back then. We were really deep into go time at that point, really. Go time for America should have been September 11th, 2001. Just swallowed up all the lies, all the obvious lies. And what did it do for us? It got us in debt. Got a lot of young people killed a lot of innocent people overseas. It's created a lot of homeless young veterans on the streets. Anyway, America needs to catch on to the games that are being played. And shout out to Yeah Right the Matrix. He shared with me a document. He texted it to me today. And he said, take a look at this. And of course, we've been doing all the work on 127 in Hawaii. If you have not been following that work, if this is somehow the first video of mine that you're seeing, again, I will go over why 127 is important. But the new governor of Hawaii, Josh Green, who was in New York, at the United Nations on the 12th day of the 7th month, talking Green New Deal type of thing, sustainable development at the United Nations on the 12th day of the 7th month, 127, in New York, not even a month before the Maui fires. Again, New York's where buildings 1, 2, and 7 fell on 9/11. Buildings 1, 2, and 7. And they called it the new Pearl Harbor. And of course, Pearl Harbor was in Hawaii, and Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, another 127 date. We've been talking about all these 127s for all these years because this number goes into so many things. Your mass shooter in Jacksonville on the day leaving 127 days left in the year. His name in Gematrias will get to 127. On that same day, August 26th, another fire sprouted up near Lahaina and burnt up 10 acres on the day leaving 127 days left in the year. But this 127 number, so important. And again, it can be explained through gematria and just recognizing the patterns. Again, as we'll get to, it's not an accident that The Rock, who plays the Maui fire god in Moana, Maui the fire god, the Polynesian fire god, he announced the new Moana film 127 days before Maui burned up. And again, there's just so many examples like this. The gematria of the woman who survived, her home survived the fires when her neighbors did not. Dora Milliken, 127, even her certain... Anyhow, this 127 number is so big. So with that in mind, look at what he signed off on just before going on this long trip out of town. Josh Green was out of town when the fires happened. He left in July. He was scheduled to come back on August 15th, the Jesuit order's birthday. That's the same day that he made the statements about comparing it to 9/11 in a war zone, what Lahaina looked like. Again, 9/11, buildings 1, 2, and 7, the new Pearl Harbor. Same numbers over and over. And it's because of what's behind those numbers in gematria, the orders that they speak to, which is the Bavarian Illuminati and the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, which were both created by the Jesuit order in history, both the Illuminati and the Scottish Rite, Jesuit creations. And again, we're going to get to who was governor when the fires began, who was filling in. It was the lieutenant governor. And guess where she went to school? Yes, Jesuit educated. And remember, it's if you're new here, it's not an accident that this whole ritual synced with Hawaii's statehood birthday. And just like it's not an accident that the U.S. is 247 years old when Hawaii burns on the 247th day of the governor being in office. But again, to focus on 127, just to read this. By the authority vested in me by the Constitution and laws of the state of Hawaii, in order to provide relief for disaster damages, losses, and suffering, and to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people, I, Josh Green, MD, for people who don't know, he became famous during COVID-19, Governor of the state of Hawaii, hereby determine, designate, and proclaim as follows. Whereas, pursuant to Chapter 127A, Hawaii Revised Statutes, emergency powers are conferred on the governor of the state of Hawaii to respond to disasters or emergencies, to maintain the strength, resources, and economic life of the community, and to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. And right now it seems that all those things are being neglected. Or I shouldn't say they're all being neglected, but it sounds like, based on hearing the stories from actual people who are sharing on social media out of those towns, that they don't feel like, they feel like the government is absent. So isn't this interesting? And again, he just signed off on this on July 17th. We'll get to the significance of that date. Has a lot to do with why he's going to be at the next tech conference in Hawaii on September 25th, the anniversary of JFK giving his weather control speech about how weather control, could be the thing that really makes this world a better place by using it in a beneficial way. But again, if the technology exists and psychopaths have it and they see more use in being destructive with it for their own greed, who's to say a Lahaina couldn't happen, But then it goes on, whereas housing is the single biggest household expense in Hawaii, making up 38% of household spending for our local people and cementing Hawaii's place as the state with the highest cost of living. So, emphasizing how expensive it is, saying the average person spends 38% of their money for their housing expense. Be interesting to see what the comparison is for a lot of other cities. Got to imagine for a lot of people in New York, it's like that at least. But anyhow, 38, interesting number, right? Because we know in Gematria, fire equals 38. And it's a number of death and destruction. And when Hawaii had the terrible flooding, that was on March 838. And again, we know how this is synced up with the Moana film, which released on the day leaving 38 days left in the year, and so on and so forth. So we've been talking a good deal about that 38. We'll talk about how it's in the name Sylvia Luke, who was the governor when the fires began, who's the Jesuit educated one out of University of San Francisco, one of the 27 Jesuit universities in the nation. But yeah, then it goes on, whereas access to housing for all is essential to the security, health, well-being, and prosperity of our communities, and whereas the severe shortfall of affordable housing had been recognized as early as 1935 when the territory of Hawaii passed Act 190, Sessions laws. So anyway, it's legal mumbo jumbo, but it essentially has to do with, in case of an emergency, a disaster. So they get all the language updated and signed, because that's what governors do. I mean, I'm sure there were similar documents that have been existing on the books, but here comes the latest, most up-to-date, all the policy written in just the way of the legal mumbo jumbo they want. And again, it just happens to be 127A. And again, he was just talking Green New Deal, Josh Green, and sustainable development, the United Nations on 12/7 in New York, again, where the new Pearl Harbor is. And then that just happens to be the number on this document. I'm scrolling down through the jargon here. We're still talking pursuant to sections 127. And there are other things here, but it starts off with the 127. More state cooperation. 127, we're getting down to the signing. So here's the signing. So done at the state capitol this 17th day of July, 2023, Josh Green, right? Josh Green. And then approved by the Attorney General Ann Lopez, born in 62. But here, let me show you. We're going to talk more about that, but I also just started to look more into his vacation since Josh Green was out of town when the fire happened. He left on July 30th. July 30th. And he was scheduled to return on August 15th, the Jesuit order's birthday. Again, in 1952, the first act of weather warfare in the world admitted to by the Royal Air Force, where the Jesuits of Catholic Church have been for longer than America's even existed. The land that we supposedly got freedom from. Freedom. But anyhow, the Jesuit order's birthday, and remember this language with freedom, when we know what dumb means. Freedom. You got to be pretty dumb to think you're free in America. Yeah, you can make some choices like what flavor of Skittles you want, but you can't make a lot of choices like where you're going to spend your childhood or what rules you're going to comply with unless you want to end up in a cage. Anyway, there's a lot of signs there's no freedom here. You got to be pretty dumb to think that's going on, but a reminder, the people who gave us the language as we know it, the Catholic Church, the oldest English script credited to a Catholic monk, Burford of Ramsey Abbey from the year 1011 AD. And it's funny how these things used to be all over the web, and a lot of things have just been scrubbed in the last 10, 15 years from the internet. But again, in the 16th century, the Jesuits created English standardized with the 26-letter alphabet. The Gregorian calendar comes out named after the Pope. Heliocentric model agreed to. The sun's at the center of it all, and the Jesuit language code and world domination code, if you will, because that's essentially what this is very prevalent. It's very prevalent. You learn the dates, you learn the knowledge, you see what is going on. So again, he was scheduled to come back on the Jesuit order's birthday, August 15th. Remember after the huge Jesuit ritual of invading Afghanistan and Iraq and the New Crusades, then Afghanistan's government collapsed after 20 years on August 15th? Huge Jesuit jokes. We've been covering it year after year. Donald Trump, Jesuit educated, his brother just drops dead on August 15th the other year unexpectedly. But yeah, Sylvia Luke, who was in charge the day of the fires, the 16th lieutenant governor, born on December 15th, the day leaving 16 days left in the year. The Jesuits since the 16th century. But Sylvia Luke, I had to go down and look at the education. I just thought, I wonder where she went to school, and I said, look at it. University of San Francisco, one of the nation's 27 Jesuit universities, again in San Francisco, named after St. Francis of Assisi, just like Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pope, is named after St. Francis of Assisi, and the reason that is because he was the leader of the San Franciscans, which were the precursor to the Jesuits, who Ignatius of Loyola modeled the order in part after. So, again, there's a deep history here. And with regards to the Jesuits, notice how in Gematria, if you write out weather control, you get these numbers. And if you write out the Jesuit order, you get these numbers. And notice how the Jesuit order and weather control, they're both 177 with the most simple cipher. That's just the alphabetic order. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, up to Z, the 26 letters, 26. The next cipher, the Jesuit order and weather control, are both 69. That's taking the alphabetic order with numerology, so A still 1, B still 2, C still 3. All the double-digit letters, though, the letters that become double-digit numbers, they get broken down to a single digit. So Z, the 26th letter, becomes 2 plus 6 is 8. Y, the 25th letter, 2 plus 5 is 7, so on. X, the 24th letter, 2 plus 4 is 6. XXX is 666 in this code, and usually XXX is meant to, tell you about things that, maybe not for the eyes of children, to say the least. But anyhow, the reverse alphabetic order, Z is 1 back to A is 26. The Jesuit order and weather control, both 201. The first Jesuit pope is Pope Francis, the first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican. The Jesuit Klaus Schwab, whose name equals 177, put on the Event 201 pandemic simulation. Again, on the day the military World Games began in Wuhan, China, right before the pandemic in Wuhan, which was right before the world. But those military World Games were created by the Jesuit order. Again, when you're aware of this knowledge, again, you have to think about it. Klaus Schwab, a Jesuit, whose name equals 177, puts on the Event 201 simulation. And then all the million other 201 rituals that ensue with the pandemic. But again, just the history of this number with the Jesuits. Ignatius of Loyola, their founder, his name equals 201. Catherine the Great, who preserves the order, of the Jesuits with 201 Jesuit priests. Again, the first Jesuit pope, Pope Francis, whose birth name Jorge Mario Bergoglio equals 201. The first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican. The building is named the Domus Sancti Marte 201. And again, that building was built for another pope who ended up dying on the 201st day of the year, Pope Leo, and so on and so forth. But now here we are with weather control, right? Weather control. And if you've been following my work, we've been talking about just how there's a straight line from the Jesuits through the history of weather control. Again, the first act of weather warfare admitted to on the Jesuit order's birthday. Again, now you got the governor coming back on the Jesuit order's birthday, and he has a tech conference when this is all the big tech takeover. I mean, all of this stuff's possible because of technology. You got to think about that. But for all days for that conference to be, it has to be on the day that JFK gave his weather control speech, when it looks like technology was used to achieve what was achieved. That's now being blamed on Mother Nature. And it goes with the other tech conference in the beginning of the year in Hawaii being the 56th of its kind. It began in 1968. And it goes with Moana being the 56th Disney film about how the dying island can only be restored with the green stone that has to be powered up by Maui. And now you got Josh Green talking Green New Deal right before town burns up, and it is now ripe real estate for a rebuilding, but with all the sustainable, development goals that he pledged Hawaii will be at the forefront of. Again, if you guys want to go get a new construction made, depending on what state you get it made in, they'll have to be built by all the latest code that comes from the government. So those administrations that are in power, they're making all the new laws, and along with the state government, but the state executive and the state legislative, they're making all the new laws, and of course the state judicial. The states are set up just like the federal government essentially. But when they build rebuild Lahaina, a lot of these new things that have been put in place, like that's the way the town's going to come back as, with all the new, and it's not to say it's all bad, right? I mean, it is good to be sustainable and green, in my opinion, as long as it's not the expenses. Well, we also have to kill the people in that town and clear the real estate to show off how green we can be and how beneficial it doesn't need to be that way. That's the way these psychopaths go about it. And again, these people are mad geniuses. They know that by ripping people's hearts out, it creates this emotional attachment, and then it knows that it makes that populace more likely to go along with whatever needs to be done. Now if at the next big State of the Union, the president's saying, because of what happened in Lahaina, it really is time to pony up the 44 trillion needed for the Green New Deal, and we will find a way as taxpayers to pay for it. And again, as a nation, we're paying for this, and the wealth's being sucked up by the small people who were chosen by that government to do the rebuilding and create the technology. Again, people need to see what this game is. It's a relatively small group of people controlling big things like national governments. Remember, just down in Nicaragua, they just kicked the Jesuits out and seized their university, and the governor of that state said the reason he did it is because they are raising terrorists at that Jesuit university. And haven't I been saying this for a long time? Tons of people go to Jesuit colleges who are good people who just want a high-class education because these Jesuit universities can provide that. But it seems obvious to me that there's somebody in that building, some faculty that's looking for the right little demon, like a little Gavin Newsom or Anthony Fauci or Donald Trump or Joe Biden. They're like, yeah, these ones are the smart pieces of scummy shit, which is exactly what we need for our scummy ass super smart agenda. And again, that's why all the ritual, it's like they're probably also, I don't know if we always see how the birthdays are so perfect with these people. Case in point, you guys, you see how Gavin Newsom, here, I'll show you a lot of things about Gavin Newsom, but we'll start right here with Gavin Newsom and Hurricane. Gavin Newsom and Hurricane are 52 forwards and 56 in reverse when numerology is applied. Gavin Newsom, in the latest Jesuit joke, was declaring an emergency for California, which is also 52 in the same cipher, like hurricane, and then also flood. Flooding has a big 52 connection. The first act of weather warfare was admitted to in 52, the flooding of Lynmouth by the Royal Air Force. August 15th, 52, Jesuit order's birthday. Jesuit served the Pope. Pope equals 52. Like 52 weeks in the year on the calendar system named for the Pope, the Gregorian calendar that we're on. We're on the Roman Catholics' 52-week calendar, where again, Pope equals 52, like Earth, telling time on Earth, where the Pope rules over all. 52 cards in the deck, a game being played with our lives that people aren't catching on to. And again, 2 books written about this now, Letters and Numbers, and the second one is Number Games, trying to get people to see the way games are being played with us by a very sophisticated cabal that has sophisticated technology. But anyway, when Gavin Newsom declared Hurricane Hillary an emergency, it was on Bill Clinton's birthday, who's also Jesuit educated at Georgetown, and it was 52 days before Gavin Newsom's 56th birthday. 52 days before his 56th birthday. The hurricane heading for Florida right now, Idalia, is an Italian name, kind of like how they compared Maui to Vesuvius, which was in Italy, where the Jesuits are with the Roman Catholic Church. All roads lead to Rome. But Idalia in Italian means behold the sun. And just for the record, look at how behold the sun is 52 and 56. And it should remind you of the year the Astros won the World Series after the Hurricane Harvey. Again, it was their 56th season, the Astros, that they won their first World Series. And remember, Matt Harvey was the first pitcher to pitch in Houston after the flooding of Harvey, exactly 52 days before the World Series, after it flooded on August 27th, the 239th day of the year, the 52nd prime. Floods 52, again, so is Earth, so is Enlil, the Babylonian god of flooding. Kabbalah, Gematria, all this goes back to Babylon, like these belief systems. See how Enlil, here, I'll just put it all out there at once. Enlil, Earth, Flood. You see how all of these words are the exact same in 3 of the ciphers and almost the exact same in 4? Remember, when Maui flooded on March 8th, the date written 8/3 or 38, it was a date with 52 numerology, and they said it was the worst flooding in Hawaii in 25 years. Notice how the word fire has that 29 as well, which is also in Earth and Enlil. From Maui flooding to Maui burning 29 days later on the nose. Again, the 38, like the first number mentioned in the document, like Sylvia Luke, who was governor. Sylvia Luke's got the 38, also the 137, like the 137 islands Hawaii's made out of, like the parallels with the Great Chicago Fire, which started at the address 137. Again, you guys, the Great Chicago Fire connecting Obama, Chicago, and Hawaii. Everybody knows why. In American history, Obama, born in Hawaii, gave his acceptance speech in Chicago, the city that he was claiming with his political career. But remember, Joe Biden, they saved him for Hawaii's 64th birthday to speak in Hawaii at the Catholic Church that survived, established in 46, like he's number 46. But this happens 152 years after the Great Chicago Fire. And again, just how planned out all this is. Again, 127, number of the Illuminati, number of the Scottish Rite, which goes back to the Jesuit order. But yeah, again, just the Jesuit order and weather control, the same in 3 out of the 4 ciphers, and Josh Green signs off on 17/7, right before he bounces, only to come back on the Jesuit order's birthday, the day he's comparing it to 9/11. You know, buildings 1, 2, and 7. War zone like Pearl Harbor on December 7th. United Nations, the 12th day of the 7th month for Josh Green, right before the fire. And remember, Maui and Kill are the exact same in every cipher. From Josh Green being at the United Nations to the fire starting was a span of 28 days, and August 9th, when it ended, was 28 days later. Synced up with Hawaii's 64th birthday as a state. Joe Biden was 17 when Hawaii was made a state. It's all synced up with Joe Biden and The Rock and Jay-Z. If you missed all my work, you gotta go back and check out. But Jay-Z's Hawaiian Sophie music video where he hangs came out on The Rock's 17th birthday, and Jay-Z also equals 17 like Maui and Kill. Again, The Rock The rock is the Polynesian fire god. In Moana, Polynesia's 127. He introduced the new Moana film 127 days before the fire. His old entertainer named Rocky Maivia, 127. Miami Hurricane. Again, the only surviving home on the block was Dora Milliken's when the winds were sped by Hurricane Dora that made the fire so devastating, they said. And again, Dora the Explorer ended 4 years to the day the fires ended, August 9th, 2019, the anniversary of Nagasaki getting wrecked in Japan, not far from Hawaii, which goes back with the history of Pearl Harbor being blamed on the Japanese and kamikazes, like 9/11 was blamed on kamikaze terrorists. But her surname Milliken's 127. Her first and last name Dora Milliken's 127. It's also 64, like how old it turned. And with her middle name, Dora Atwater Milliken, it's also 127. And again, we got all those names from the media, the stories about her. And, also the Fire and Fury book about Maui burning up, that the media says just a coincidence. 127, 64, like how old Maui turned, 62, like how old Barack turned. Kanye with the connection also through Chicago. It was the 62nd day of Kanye's age, and Kanye's connected back to what he said after Hurricane Katrina about Bush being a racist. And again, you guys, you can see how they're bringing all these calamities together, all these moving pieces against the people of the U.S. Weather warfare blamed on crazy weather from humanity not respecting nature, which is true in a sense, but these people are making the problem way worse than it really is. And instead of going about it in a humane way, they go about it in the psychopathic way that they know gets results. Again, there's a reason these people do what they do and continue to do it. It's because it's working. It's how they rule the world. Like, a lot of people get hung up on questions like, I don't get why they do it. These people are ruling the world, and that's their bottom line. That's their constitution. We will rule the world, whatever the fuck it takes. Ad merum de gloriam. Isus hominum salvator. Fuck you. That's who these people are. And does it mean that Josh Green rolls like that? But no. But it's obvious that Josh Green is on the puppet strings of this network. I don't think Josh Green masterminded all this, since it's been going on since way before Josh Green was governor. But he's the right one, right? He's got the right name. Remember how Greenville, what was the name of the town that burned up in California by the numbers the other year? Right after Paradise? Green something. Another sick joke. Looked just like Maui. Didn't make any sense. That's what it is. They just try to shift away from Maui as nothing's explained. Reading this thing about, again, listen to it. So this is the problem with government right here. This should just clue off to everybody. This is what's wrong with government. Look at what government's actually doing for the people who lost everything. They'll send you $700. Oh, sorry, we couldn't find your post office box, so we haven't sent that check yet. Sorry, your property wasn't up to speed for the, well, actually, at this day and age, everyone probably has like some kind of direct digital deposit. And I guess maybe that's another way to, again, just an example. See, this is why you got to sign up with the government digital system, because now we can't put anything in your mailbox. So here, for all you people who need disaster relief, let's get in the new digital program. Next thing you know, this is being showcased at the new United Nations meeting with Josh Green. Hey, something great that came out of the Maui fires. Look at how nice and clean and efficient this is. And, everything is just so much more orderly. Under our one world, we got surveillance over everything because we control the tech companies, your government, your media. This is the world we're living in, you guys. And people are sound asleep to it, and it's so obvious. See, it took a long time to figure it out as well as we have. And what's sad is that, some videos definitely are explained better than others, but it's just sad that even though we figured it out so well, people still can't see it. It's like you shouldn't even have to listen to me talking about this to see how controlled things are. It should be so obvious that you are presented total bullshit on the news every day, lied to every day by your government, one excuse after the next, more and more taxes for what? As seemingly the quality of life diminishes, the more I have to pay, it seems like the more the quality of life diminishes. And I started asking questions about weather warfare literally 18 years ago today, because I started to research Katrina. Katrina did not make any sense. And I mean, if you weren't alive back then, it didn't make any sense. The news media for a whole week was covering this storm and how it could hit New Orleans, which is under sea level, and how terrible it could be. It was like a whole week of just nonstop cable news coverage, and then it hit, right? Well, at first it like hit, and then it didn't happen, and then people say they heard loud explosions, and the levees broke, and it was like the Led Zeppelin song, when the levees break, you better go up to Chicago. Better think about that one, too, with this whole Chicago thing. Chicago now with Maui. But, you know, Katrina happened right after Kanye was becoming first famous. Kanye might have had that college dropout maybe come out the year before, 2004. He got famous for what he said after that with everybody. He's been in the media nonstop ever since what he said after Katrina. And then remember, he's putting out that album for his mother on the anniversary of Katrina. And here we are again, and now we got more storms in the region. Looks like this time it's going to be Florida. They're saying Tampa area. But yeah, anyway, just to come back to this, to again emphasize what the point of government is and just how it can have all this fancy shit written down, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. Office of the Governor, State of Hawaii, proclamation relating to housing. By the authority vested in me by the Constitution and laws of the State of Hawaii in order to provide relief for disaster damages, losses, and suffering, and to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people, I, Josh Green, MD, Governor of the State of Hawaii, hereby determine, designate, and proclaim as follows. Whereas, pursuant to Chapter 127A, Hawaii Revised Statutes, emergency powers are conferred on the Governor of the State of Hawaii to respond to disasters or emergencies. And how's he done that? It's his responsibility, and he has not done it. This is why people need to get over the illusion of authority and it keeping us safe. It's not doing shit. Most people are not psychopathic killers that want to hurt other people. People who end up doing that kind of stuff come from really bad situations, and it seems like what in this world creates really bad situations is governments, because they go in and devastate communities and start war and kill the men and just start the dominoes tipping over. This thing, we know that was a ritual in Nicaragua with, unless they're catching on, Nicaragua's like, fuck, I'm watching that guy's videos about how bad these Jesuits are in 201. We're 201 years old. I'm shutting these Jesuits down here. If you guys missed it, Nicaragua did just get shut down, or the Jesuits got shut down in Nicaragua, at least in the headlines, while the country is 201 years old. But still, regardless of what that is, it's still the truth being echoed. And are they going to end up making it look like in the long run that was some kind of crazy, cuckoo governor to go against this great holy order of the Catholic Church that has all these nice schools in the world? I mean, that could be the long-term plan of that story. But again, I know that what he said is not wrong. It has to be that they recruit the psychopaths who go in front of us. Here, about Gavin Newsom. Coronavirus. Look at coronavirus and look at Gavin Newsom. And let's go back to Gavin Newsom's quote. You see how coronavirus and Gavin Newsom have the gematria of 56, 142, 155? Gavin Newsom, coronavirus. Same numbers, 56, 142, 155. And again, when he locked down the state, he said 56% of California will get coronavirus in 8 weeks, which is 56 days. And the formal title of the Jesuits is Society of Jesus, which equals 56. Like Washington, D.C., their stronghold where they've been since before the feds, like Anthony Fauci. And again, like Cuomo being the 56th governor of New York, who went to the Jesuit school Fordham in the time of Trump, who went to Fordham, and who waited 56 years. Well, the pandemic was declared 56 years after 64, and Trump declared the state of emergency on Friday, March 13, 2020, a date with 56 numerology when Friday the 13th goes with the Templars and the Templar cross in the middle of the Jesuit logo. And just on and on and on. There were so many 56s in 2020, it was crazy. Jeff Bezos to Dan Brown to Bill Gates and beyond. But don't forget, 15155, the first pandemic simulation that was the sister simulation of Event 201. It was on May 15th, 15/5, Mercuralia Day. And then all these numbers up here with COVID we talked about in a bunch of ways. If you have not read my book, Number Games, again, it was done being written essentially in August of 2020 and out shortly after that. But I laid down where all of those numbers had already been used a ton of times in the nonstop headlines of why we needed to be afraid of coronavirus. How they just kept using those same numbers over and over, and what it showed. Because again, I'm showing how throughout history, this is what they do to us. They plan things by a numerical code. Look at this. Look at this, Truth Seeker. Josh Green, right? Again, in Judaism, numbers are super important. Josh Green is Jewish. He's the second Jewish governor of Hawaii. The last was born on 6/4. And again, 64 spaces on the chessboard. Right before the 64th birthday. The Illuminati, founded by somebody who was Jewish, Adam Weishaupt, who was Jesuit trained. The Jesuits, a Catholic Jewish alliance. But he founded it 64 days before America was born on July 4th, 1776, on the date May 1st, 1776. And again, it's not to say that all Jewish people are responsible or all Jesuits are responsible. It's to say that there's groups within this network that have this knowledge. Like gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words. To most Americans, it sounds like crazy conspiracy bullshit. Whereas in Judaism, they're like, oh yeah, I know about that because that's a part of the Hebrew language. It's understood. It's part of the culture. And isn't it interesting how interesting culture is? In Judaism, all of this is understood. When we go to Yale, we're not everybody's Jewish, but they're all intelligent. It's all understood too. So within the culture of intelligent people, gematria is very interesting. Jewish people, yes, because they get it. And one of the best responses we had last year when we were at Yale was from a Jewish guy who was just like, oh my God, I should have known. He couldn't believe when we were showing him all this stuff about Yale and 43 and the history with the Bushes and that number and Brady and football and Walter Camp and the Goatville killings. But he was just like, I should have known that it was in English too. He said like the same kind of thing. He's like, these people are crazy. But see, he knows it's like he knows it's within his own thing, right? See, that's the thing. You try to talk about things, and now because of people like Lenny Posner, who also goes to worship on Saturday, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just making the point, it's Lenny Posner who's been waging the crusade against the First Amendment, and it's also a lot of people that go to worship on Saturday that are waging the war against the Second Amendment, and again, these are facts. These aren't biased opinions or anything. These are facts. And facts should be able to be discussed. And again, I'm not saying that everybody should have animosity towards Jewish people. I'm just saying when you look at all the facts, there's a lot of people that go to worship on Saturday that are really trying to tear down the First and Second Amendment, which are the things that make America, America. And it's not to say that all Jewish people want to have that happen. I'd say far from it. I'd say the majority of Jewish people are opposed to these things happening. But again, I mean, we got to look at how perfectly this is synced with Josh Green, and it's even synced with the other one that was born on 6/4. And again, you got to ask, who would ever come up with such a system to do it this way? I mean, that there's a logical line to follow. Again, the Jesuits are a Catholic Jewish alliance. The Catholic Church wants to dominate the world. The Catholics and the Jews were targeted by the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther wrote the 95 Theses. That's why MLK was killed in a huge Jesuit ritual on the 95th day of the year, 3 days before the Club of Rome was established. Anyway. But yeah, this stuff is sick, you guys. And what I want to find is the last document before this latest update that was signed off just before the fires. I want to see what the number was before it was 38%. I bet they changed that number. Because again, that's a big number with the history of fires. They have a nickname, fires, strange fires. It's like something lightning. Some people know what I'm talking about. Other people don't. I can't say it on here. We can't have a sense of humor. Only they can. But the practice of coding numbers into words comes from Kabbalah, which is another 38 word. The word Jew is 38. The word Pentagon is 38, which is interesting because DC is on the 38th meridian. Or excuse me, the 38th parallel north Washington, D.C. is on. It's on the 72nd meridian west, like Flight 77 hitting the 77-foot tall Pentagon 77 minutes after taking off on September 11th when Pentagon construction began on September 11th. No, so September 11th is 77. So Pentagon in the date and in the name, it has the coordinates. And again, we know everything was 77 on 9/11. Run it the other way, 94. They open on the 94th day of the year, April 4th, 73. Run it the other way, 247. Josh Green compared Maui to 9/11, and it burned up on the 247th day of him being governor while the U.S. is 247. And 185, Josh Green said 185 people were searching the site at the time of him speaking, 185 days after his birthday. And remember, the World Trade Centers came down, blamed on Osama bin Laden, born March 10th. They came down 185 days later on September 11th. So, again, I mean, that's how we know this is the system. This is what they've been doing. Remember the World Trade Centers, just until before the attack, they were always owned by the Port Authority, so essentially by the city. And then it sold to, Larry Silverstein, who worships on Saturday. You know what I mean? And technically, they're doing it right, because in the Bible, if you're going to go by the Bible, it does say you're supposed to worship on Saturday. You're supposed to worship on the Sabbath day. Keep the Sabbath day holy. Sunday's the day of rest. So that was the Catholic Church thing, getting the Christians to worship on Sunday. Got to make it easier to pick the sides. They're always trying to put people in groups. But yeah, again, I mean, there's a million reasons to wake up. All right, here's your governor. He just done the update, too, right before this happened. You would think it was fresh in his mind about how he's got to rise up and protect. He's the man in charge. If there's a disaster, he's signing his name on the line. Pursuant to Chapter 127A, Hawaii Revised Statutes, emergency powers are conferred on the governor of the state of Hawaii to respond to disasters or emergencies. And his response has been really inept. It seems like on the internet, the only person we can see who's responding to the scene is Hawaii Real Estate. And I'm just curious about the whole Hawaii real estate guy. I find it interesting that, he's allowed to promote conspiracy theories and get hundreds of thousands of views, because I know that what I've been promoting have been labeled conspiracy theories, even though I prove my point day after day. And we're just buried in an algorithm. Or, I don't know, maybe America just prefers listening to a man babble on who has no idea about anything what happened, because that's also what's going on in that channel. It's like we got it all figured out over here, and the word's not getting out. How tragic. How tragic. So, all right, you guys, but I am eyeing the date September 25th, and I'm just trying to smooth things out with the sweet lady here. She doesn't feel right about me going to Hawaii without her, because neither of us have ever been there. And I'm saying, well, I'm not going there to vacation. I'm going there to educate about this. So anyhow, I'm trying to soothe the idea of September 25th being the day for Hawaii, because that's the day Josh Green's at this tech conference. But maybe also the days before that. Maybe be there September 23rd, 24th, 25th, because those days before are the weekend, and you can always get better turnouts on the weekend. But I would like to be where he's going to be on September 25th on the anniversary of JFK's weather control speech, because it just sets up the perfect narrative for everything I want to talk about. Again, it's the 62nd anniversary of the speech. We know what happened with Obama, another president, right after he turned 62, 4 days after his birthday on August 4th, Maui burns up, and his full name equals 64, like Hawaii turned 64. 8 times 8, 64. 64 spaces, 8 by 8 board, chessboard. Anyway, September 25th, right now, looks like a good date, and I think we'll probably have a good chance to talk about another act of weather warfare that day, and hopefully it's not right there in Hawaii, but it could be, because that's the day leaving 97 days left in the year. Big hurricane number. Talked about that with the Jay-Z piece in his Hawaiian Sophie music video. But yeah, September 25th, Josh Green will be speaking. He's the first speaker that day. But yeah, I got to get this little short book I'm writing finished, and I was just I was looking for more good pieces of information, and yeah, right, the Matrix, he found this document signed just days before. And to me, this is perfect for painting the picture of of why government, again, my whole message here, like, I can't believe people watch my channel and don't know what I'm trying to say. My whole message is our government is totally corrupt and evil and does not deserve to be obeyed or followed or tolerated. It needs to be overthrown. Most people are not psychopathic killers. Society's not going to just break out into chaos and people are going to start killing each other unless they're desperate and they don't have a way to feed themselves or take care of themselves in the slightest. And more, that's becoming the story for a lot of people because of the policies that are being instituted today. And like the West Coast. For people who haven't figured out why the West Coast is all full of homeless, it also goes back to the technology world. These big tech companies come into cities and then they hire hundreds of thousands of people and pay them a massive salary that's way higher than what everybody else makes in the city. All of a sudden, there's 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 more people that are making around $300,000 when before the average salary in the city was like around 80,000, or if you were doing well, you were like 100. But because all this wealth comes in, everything goes up in price. Everyone realizes they can raise price. Next thing is rents are going way up. And people who've been living in the city can't afford to live there. And then next thing you know, I mean, there's all these contributing factors, right? Next thing you know, you're out at the bar because you're mad because you got to move out of your place, and you know somebody gave you something to try, and now you're a fentanyl addict. All you were out doing was just trying to relieve your sorrows of not being able to afford to live in the city. Now you're homeless in the city on fentanyl or Percocet 30s or whatever else is going on with the populace. I mean, there's just all these pressures that are just crushing people right now. And this is what's happening. And then again, a lot of the young people are also veterans who went over and didn't like what they had to do in the recent wars, just like how that happened after Vietnam and these other needless wars that were all Jesuit constructs by the same code. 38's the number of deaths. They sent the first Marines into Vietnam on March 8th. You think that's an accident? In a war that had no real result, just a whole bunch of death and casualty? Suppose napalm experimentation? But yeah, these people, man, they're so. I mean, they just don't break their code. They don't break form. And I realize just the average person, man, just talking to the average person in this community, that they get my videos while they're watching them, but then to have to go share the information again, even though like a lot of it's written down in books, you could just share pages of books. I just hear a lot of people say, oh, it's hard because I can't explain it. And even, Write the Matrix. Write the Matrix who passed this document on to me. He didn't notice the 127. He just thought it was interesting what he signed off on in how close proximity. I said, you didn't notice the 127 right at the top? And his response was, yeah, the numbers just never stand out to me. So again, just for whatever reason with a lot of people, numbers do not resonate. They do not stick in their mind. They don't catch on to the patterns. Again, it's because we're all different. Like to me, I can't even comprehend it. The numbers are just like, like I don't know how you don't see it. But anyway, somehow, some way, we got to figure out how to get the idea into the minds of the masses, because it's not a bullshit idea. It's the truth. Our government is so bought out and sold out and so corrupt, and you just don't know what American town's going to be in the crosshairs next, but it'll probably be a lot until they achieve 2030, Agenda 2030. They got all these nice plans to make the world so much more sustainable. But like I've been saying the whole time, you have to understand who rolled out that code. Why was Agenda 21 rolled out in a huge 201 ritual as it was? Again, you can see the Jesuits have been bankrolled the whole time, and you see what this Jesuit order is? They sell you nice ideas, but they do really evil things to get there. And again, it wasn't me who said it, but people have said many a times long before I was alive. The Jesuits essentially invented the idea of the ends justifies the means, and they will do anything to achieve their agendas. You know what? But before I end this stream, let's see if we can contact Sylvia Luke. Let's see if she has a number. Sylvia Luke, Hawaii phone number. Hold on. That's the office of the governor. Yeah, we do. We got a phone line. Let's try this out. 808-586-0255. Whoops. All right, here we go.
Welcome to the voicemail box for the Lieutenant Governor's office. Please leave a detailed message including your name, phone number, email address, and a description of the services you would like assistance with. Mahalo.
Yes, I am an author. My name is Zachary K. Hubbard. You can reach me at 509-560-4982. And something I've been focused on is what JFK said in 1961 on September 25th about the future of weather control and how weather control could be a great benefit to humanity. I've often wondered since that time if maybe psychopaths got a hold of the technology and if they might be the Jesuits themselves, since the first act of weather warfare was admitted to actually even before JFK's speech on the Jesuit order's birthday, August 15th, 1952. And I noticed Josh Green was out of town during the strange Maui fires that concluded on the anniversary of the end of Dora the Explorer's. Only Dora's house survived, apparently in the town of Lahaina. But I noticed Josh Green, who was out of town, was scheduled to come back on the Jesuit order's birthday, August 15th. And I noticed who was in charge at the time the fire began was Sylvia Luke, who went to the Jesuit school in San Francisco, named after, or the city is named after St. Francis of Assisi, like the first Jesuit pope, Pope Francis. And that's because St. Francis of Assisi created the precursor to the Jesuits, the Franciscans. But anyhow, if there's anyone in the office who can actually investigate if Sylvia Luke, Josh Green, Hawaii burned up on his 247th day of office while the U.S. was 247 years old, and it also burned up 13 days before its statehood birthday when it was once overthrown in 1893 by the Committee of 13, 130 years ago, 130. Here we are on the 13 stripes. But yeah, I also noticed that the man who replaced Sylvia later on August 8th, because they were sharing the governor's role while she went out of town that day, I noticed that his term ends on Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th in office. His last day in office is December 7th. And again, Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 127. They said 9/11 was the new Pearl Harbor, where buildings 1, 2, and 7 fell, and Josh Green compared Maui, where it burned, to 9/11 on the Jesuit order's birthday. And Josh Green was just in New York at the United Nations to talk sustainable development, essentially Green New Deals, on the 12th day of the 7th month. Again, there's something very suspicious going on here, and if anybody really cares about the people in Lahaina, and if the current, governor's office has anything to do with what actually happened with those fires, maybe using those things JFK was talking about back on September 25th, 1961, it would be good to find that information and get it out to the public so there doesn't have to be another Maui, because Maui wasn't the first. And funny enough, isn't it funny that Josh Green's going to be talking at the tech conference on the anniversary of that speech, September 25th next month? So maybe press should be there on that day to bring up the irony. See if it's all a coincidence. The winds of Dora destroy Lahaina in an unprecedented fire that hasn't really been explained and is already being brushed under the rug by the media on the anniversary of Dora the Explorer ending. But yeah, thank you for listening to my message. And if you want to call me back, again, my name is Zachary Hubbard, 509-560-4982. Thank you.
Thank you. To send your message, press 3 or hang up. To delete, your message has been sent. To access the voice portal.
All right, message sent. Somebody there will hear that needs to hear it. Anyway, if all goes to plan, we'll be there delivering the message with a little booklet form with it all very nicely written out in order where you can't lose your train of thought. So, shout out to Clea Argo. Clea Argo. Thank you very much. Sadly, Hawaii real estate is a shill, and book title. Yeah, I don't know if he is or not, but so far, no response to what we're doing. I know he's making a lot of money off his live streams. He says it's all going to be donated to the victims, but who's going to follow up on that? Golden ID code. Zach, did you hear about the 127-year-old water main that broke in New York City today ahead of tomorrow's Super Blue Monday? 127-year-old New York water. Let's see. 2 hours ago. 2 hours ago, you guys, in the news. And it's just like that storm that's hitting Hawaii equals 127. Or not, well, that definitely was Hawaii, but the one that's hitting Florida right now. It's supposed to make landfall tomorrow. 127-year-old water main. Remember, you guys, there's a lot to this number 127. It's the 31st prime number. 31's the 11th prime number. So 127 has a mathematical connection back to 11, the master number. And now here we are back in New York, where buildings 1, 2, and 7 fell on the 11th of the month in the 11th state, New York. The World Trade Centers look like an 11. The first flight to hit the building was AA11. I like how they got the 42nd Street sign there, too. 127-year-old water main gives way under New York City's Times Square flooding street subway. So it caused flooding. They're saying that this storm should cause flooding in Florida, and it has the 127 connect. It's the anniversary of Katrina. A 127-year-old water main under New York's Times Square gave way early Tuesday, flooding midtown streets and the city's busiest subway station. The 20-inch half-meter water main gave way under 40th Street and 7th Avenue at 3 a.m., said Rohit Agarwala, commissioner of New York City's Department of Environmental Protection. The rushing water was only a few inches deep on the street, but videos posted on social media showed the flood cascading into the Times Square subway station, down stairwells, and through ventilation grates. The water turned the trenches that carry the subway tracks into mini rivers and soaked train platforms. It took DEP crews about an hour to find the source of the leak and shut the water off. The excavation left a big hole at the intersection of 40th Street and 7th Avenue. 40th and 7th? Anything stand out to you about that? Where workers were digging with heavy equipment to get to the broken section of pipe. While that intersection remained closed to car traffic, surrounding streets were opened by rush hour. Subway service, however, was suspended through much of Manhattan on the 1, 2, and 3 lines, which run directly under the broken pipe. Service was restored with delays by midday, New York City Transit CEO Richard Davey said. Agarwala said it appeared the only two local businesses were without, I guess it's a typo, were left without water at the start of the workday. Go figure, though. Go figure it's that number again. Very specific, right? They got to be so specific. I mean, does that detail even need to be in the story? Couldn't it be like over 100-year-old? Very specific. And like I've always said, that's how I figured this out. Looking at all these very specific numbers that just seem like they didn't need to be there. Reminded me like how the 4th book of the Bible was titled Numbers, and the Bible was a book full of numbers where nobody knows what the numbers mean. People read the news all the time, listen to the stories all the time, never pay attention to the numbers. People read the Bible all the time, doesn't even register in their head that the book's named Numbers or that there's all these very specific numbers in the Bible with no explanation. I mean, that's what drove me nuts as a child. So, again, I mean, it just seems that the normal mind... You know, it's funny, like... If you go in bookstores, you guys, there are books in there written by Jewish authors about why they are, you know, the greatest thing since sliced bread and how much smarter they are and why their IQs are higher than everybody else's. I think something that is true of most Jewish people, and again, not all, but most Jewish people, is they tend to be better than average with numbers. And again, because it's part of the culture and the Torah, and again, Kabbalah and the awareness of gematria, and in the Hebrew alphabet, every letter's a number. I don't know. I think like somehow, some way, they also. Again, there's some not nice things written about non-Jewish people in the Talmud, about how they're not much different than animals. But yeah, I mean, they really do put simple patterns in front of everybody, like every day, all the time, in news media, and it's just like, it's overkill. Like they got to put 33 in almost every single mass shooting, like nobody's paying attention. And I don't know, I think it's like some kind of superiority flex. But yeah, people need to wake up. So the flex doesn't work anymore. And this shit doesn't work anymore. And we do overthrow these governments that need to be overthrown. I want to think that there can be a form of governance with people, but I think it should be on a lot more local level. Very local. Imagine the town of Lahaina had its own government, its own protocols, in case an emergency like this breaks out, how they're all going to help each other. But we're not like that anymore. Society's all disorganized. We've all just allowed authorities to take care of us our whole life. We show up in their building to learn what matters. Then we get out, we sign up and register with all their things and pay them all their fees and then comply with all their taxes. And again, it's the governments and the banks working together too. I mean, if you're not paying the taxes right away, you're paying the debt to the bankers in your young upbringing in America. You're either going to work and paying taxes or you're going to school and getting in debt. Unless you excelled and you got scholarships, but then, hey, you're going to be a big tax contributor in the not too distant future. So, but yeah, look, it was Josh Green. He just signed off. He was in charge, and now you just see it's crickets out there. No explanations. But in the future there will be a time when he's gloating about what a wonderful job they've done rebuilding Lahaina, and here's the memorial for the X amount of people that were turned into ash and supposedly a wildfire. Here's the memorial for them. And the best we could do is rebuild Lahaina even more beautiful for them. It'll be like that. And then everyone will cheer. And then who knows, maybe he'll get re-election. And here, meanwhile, it's like he was out of town talking Green New Deal, how they're going to be at the forefront of sustainable development goals. Now they got Maui has like in the modern age in prime real estate, they have the most clearest section of real estate there ever was to be at the forefront, to show us how it's done. Synced up with Moana and the Greenstone. Josh Green. I mean, it couldn't be a better Hollywood script. Josh Green for the Green New Deal. And again, what I've been saying about how all this stuff goes together. All these agendas, everything they're doing, from COVID to pushing homosexuality to the crazy weather warfare, it all factors in with Agenda 2030 and sustainable development goals and climate change target goals. Getting carbon emissions to zero is the goal. And again, they propose some crazy ideas for how to do that. Bill Gates, he's testing it out right now in Wyoming. They've built a huge, I don't know if they've actually set it off yet, but I know they've been building the test site. Got to follow up on that. Bill Gates' nuclear test reactor in Wyoming. They're going to take a bunch of spent nuclear energy fuel and they're going to burn it underground. And it can burn for apparently up to, he said it can burn for like 50 years at a time and power a city like Los Angeles all the way. Everything it needs. Zero emissions. All the crap stored in the ground in a very safe tube. So it's like, well, and I guess they probably mine the ground too. They might choose to put those things in some very specific places that have some elements under there they want. I mean, everything they do is for, these people are smart, strategic. We'll do this and achieve this. You heard two birds with one stone. We're going to do 12 with one. Watch this. So. But yeah, they stick it in your face with the numbers. So yeah, the next thing I'm going to be doing is trying to find out more about this history of the chapter 127A. When was the last time it was updated? And well, nobody picked up at Sylvia Luke's office, but should we talk here? You know what? We've called Josh Green's office once. Let's call it again because we haven't gotten a follow back. Let's try Josh Green's office one more time. Hold on. Contact. Let's see. Contact Josh Green, Governor, Hawaii. I'm going to ask him specifically about that document and if they know when it was updated prior.
Aloha. Thank you for calling the office of Governor Josh Green, MD. Our office is actively engaged on the Maui wildfires relief efforts. For information on these efforts or more immediate assistance,
We were able to get a hold of them in the days after.
808
So the days after they weren't active, this is all about public relations right here. This is how easy it is to do nothing. Just put up a voicemail. Kick your feet back.
Hawaii.gov. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 7:45 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., except for state holidays. Again, thank you for calling.
Oh, you know, that is true. I am calling Hawaii. Right now it's 7:47 a.m. in Hawaii. So I might have called too early. They're 3 hours behind us, Hawaii. It's 10:47 out here on the West Coast. It's 1:47 on the East Coast. But that wasn't the business hours. But yeah, I do want to get to the bottom of I'm sure there was another form of that document before July 17th. All right, appreciate the eyes, golden ID codes. I'll add that one, document that. Shout out to John Mendoza again. Thank you again, friend. Appreciate the consistency. Zachary L. Goodwin chipped in $5, said, when you go to Hawaii, look at Pearl Harbor Monument. They admit Roosevelt had knowledge of the attack but didn't act on it. Interesting. I will have to check that out. If I have enough time. But again, Teddy Roosevelt was all about making Hawaii a state for the future sake of America. So again, the Roosevelts, Teddy, and then Theodore was in office when Pearl Harbor happened. Appreciate that. Thank you. ZG Yon UNC shooting info. ZG, what is it? ZG Yon, let's see. Victim identified. Suspect charged. Again, we talked about what was interesting about this UNC shooting yesterday that went from 2:30 to 3:30. It's 23. When you think UNC, you think number 23, Jordan. Remember, we had the last Asian-related mass shooting on the 44th day of the year, Michigan State, and then James Harden did the huge 44 ritual while the Asian victim was in attendance. Again, Asian happens to have the Gematria 44, like shooting, like James Harden, like overtime, which he sent the game to in that tribute. So I guess it's the update story. I see 34. UNC Chapel Hill graduate student Taileki, 34, has been charged with first-degree murder. What do we know the word murder equals in gematria? 34, right? Murder, 34, alphabetic order numerology. In Monday's on-campus shooting of Zaiji Yan, an associate professor in the university's Department of Applied Physical Sciences. Okay. So, are you saying there's something interesting about the name? He's got the 117. Yeah, the thing that really stands out to me is just the 34-year-old shooter. 117 is a big CIA number. A lot of CIA rituals with 117, but 34 is a murder number, so the killer's a 34-year-old. Okay, I'll look more into that too. And here, let's just see what the latest news is real quick. Idalia could be a once-in-a-lifetime event. You know, this is the other thing they're doing with the media in recent years, right? There's a lot of, and I feel like it's I feel like it's actually part of what they want. It makes it more of a guessing game with these storms because they've been playing this game of how horrible this storm's gonna be. And then you hear from the people there, they're like, it was hardly anything. Like, we even had like worse storm last month. There was no news about it. It's like, okay. So the news media is hyped up for all these days how horrible the storm could be. That really wasn't that bad at all. But the thing is, even when they do that, man, Home Depot, Lowe's, all these types of stores, they benefit because people go and buy up everything. Makes money move. So, but yeah, it's also like, God, well, I've seen them do this before and then it was nothing. What do I do this time? Because our news media sucks. That's what's annoying, that people keep listening to this crap news. It's not helpful in any way. It's totally misleading. It's totally fear-based. It's poorly researched. It's just fucking trash. That's always having to be... I mean, how often does the media have to retract its story and change the story? And, actually... I mean, it just happens that the Vegas cop who rewrote the story a million times for the Vegas mass shooting, which we predicted before it happened, now we had the dates circled all year long, because we know what's going on in the world. But the guy who rewrote the story a million times, now he's in charge. And literally, he's like one of the guys in charge, where it is. The way their laws are drawn up over there, the police guy's in charge. Guy that just will change the story as many times as it needs to be changed. Because the story doesn't make any fucking sense. Yeah, it's just all gross, man. And again, who's telling you to do this, right? Doing this. Idalia is the name of this storm. Idalia. Here, Idalia meaning. Let's go to it again. Where are the Jesuits from? Italy, right? The name Idalia is a girl's name of Italian origin. Well, they're really from Paris, France, but they were always created to serve the Vatican, which is in Italy. So ultimately, it's Italian, like the mob. The name Idalia is girl's name of Italian origin, meaning behold the sun. And remember, we talked about how behold the sun equals behold the sun 5256, just like hurricane. And how these numbers get used ritualistically, and how they just did in California. 52 days before Gavin Newsom's 56th birthday, whose name is 52 and 56. But again, the Catholic Church is a sun cult. The Jesuit Order's logo is the sun with the letters IHS and the Templar cross and the 3 nails for triclavianism. But yeah, just everything in Hawaii, everything synced up that they just did in California. You can just see the Jesuit jokes on each one. And I'd say, behold the sun, an Italian name. I'd say that fits the theme. You know, you can say I'm stretching all you want, but I'd say you're not able to follow simple patterns. I'd say you're the proof of why these people are getting away with what they're getting away with. No recognition of the simple patterns. And for the average American, you know, I think my dad's a real good litmus test for the average American, especially getting older. He just turned 70 recently. But I was bringing up Maui to him. He said, oh, yeah, that was already last weekend already. And I said, no, not last weekend. He goes, what? And I said, last weekend was the California thing that they were doing. He's like, oh, yeah, that's right, it's California. So that's what I mean. And that's how most Americans are. They already forgot about Maui. They've already confused it with California last week. And now it's going to be Idalia and everything else they'll throw at him. And notice, right as school gets back in session, all of a sudden mass shootings are just popping up almost every day in the news. Little one here, bigger one here. It's just, God, it's sick, man. It's sick watching this system go on and exist, and people just keep putting their child into it. If I have any children, they will not ever be in any education system, not private or state, because the private schools are just fancier state schools. You're just paying more. They're teaching the same damn curriculum. But it's just sick how people are just marching along to this system and not catching on. By the way, you see how Jesuit order has the gematria of 54 and 72? All those numbers are super important with the Jesuits. But look at the word university, 54, right? And look at the word school, 72, right? And the oldest university in the world for the model that we have, it's not Oxford, it's actually the one at the Vatican. This is how they've done world domination. They've controlled the minds of people from a young age with religion, with school, by controlling the state. And again, there's a reason we have in our society a nation's capital with all Roman architecture and the phrase all roads lead to Rome. But yeah, before I get too redundant like I can be, we'll leave it there. Thank you to everyone who hits the like and the share. And again, I'll get this short book done soon. And I feel like the people of the world who care about Maui got to make a point to constantly be reminded about it on their social media pages, where you do have a little bit of influence. Everybody has a little bit of influence. Together, everybody has a lot of influence if they work together. But yeah, not just Maui too. We'll just keep track of everything they do. We can't forget about these acts of weather warfare that destroy communities and are blamed on acts of Mother Nature when we know that's what's not going on. This stuff is very sophisticated and planned out, and these people are laying down their Kabbalistic number trail. Learn to follow that breadcrumb trail, and you'll see exactly how redundant these people are. Till next time, Truth Seeker.